So good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have us join you today for our incredible town hall. We have an amazing panel of guests. And to really get us started and to kick everything off, I'd like to introduce Mariano Martinez. He is the chairman of the board of directors for Chamber South, and he's going to just do some brief welcome remarks. Mariano?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariano Martinez. I'm a senior vice president with U.S. Century Bank. I'm the chairman for Chamber South. Welcome you all today. Thank you for joining us. We have an amazing panel that's made some time to join us all, give us some great information about what's going on in Miami-Dade County. I want to welcome our board of directors, our members, and all our guests that have joined us today. Thank you all for being here. If you're not a member of Chamber South, please keep up with us. We're trying to help everyone in the community right now. It's definitely some trying times for everyone, different times. Everyone's trying to get used to the new normal. So the new normal is going to be changing, and it's something that's going to be changing over the next few months. So that's some of the information we're going to be discussing today. So we're happy to bring it to you. I want to introduce Mayor Joe Corradino of Pinecrest. He's been kind enough to sponsor. The Corradino Group is sponsoring our call today, and we're so happy to have him. He's the former chair of Chamber South, and he's very supportive of our organization, and we do very much appreciate him, and we'll give the floor to him now.
Thanks, Mariano. I really appreciate the opportunity to sponsor this panel. This is a great group of people, and I want to thank you all, everything you guys do at the Chamber of Commerce. I've been a member of the Chamber since the 1990s, and it's done remarkable work and gets better every year. And from my perspective as a small business owner with the Corradino Group, I wanted to say that this is a really important town hall because it's incredibly important at this time for us as small businesses to work together with our partners at the cities, the state, and the federal level to help kickstart the economy together. As a small business owner, my company employs about 200 people that helps do planning and design and implementation of all types of policies and projects and infrastructure. And these are the types of things that, you know, that move our economy. And I'm kind of lucky. A lot of the people in our field are able to work from home, but there's a lot of people that can't. So beyond the current reopening, what I'm seeing is that the folks on this panel today are really going to be where the rubber hits the road relative to state and federal funding that are going to kickstart this economy. And I just want to thank them all personally. I've had the pleasure of working with every one of these guys and girls over the years, and we couldn't be in better hands when it comes to leadership at the state and federal level. So I'll leave it at that and sit back and watch, and thank you for doing this, Chamber, and thank you all leaders for being here. It's good to communicate.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe Corradino, for your continued support. So we're just going to get right into it. Today, I will be your moderator. And like I said before, it is an absolute privilege to have this incredible panel of speakers joining us today. So before each speaker is given their opportunity to speak, I will briefly introduce them and they'll give a 10-minute update. If you have any questions, please use the chat feature and we'll make sure that all of your questions are answered at the end of the program. And the last thing is just to make sure that you keep yourself muted for the duration of the program. So our first guest is Congresswoman Donna Shalala. She is a member of the U.S. House of Representatives for the Florida's 27th District, and this encompasses a large portion of Miami-Dade County from North Bay Village to Cutler Bay, Miami Beach to Kendall, and she will be updating us on the federal response to this pandemic and the latest legislation that's coming out of Congress. So Congresswoman, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I'm very pleased to be here and to say hello to all the Chamber members as well as my friend the Mayor, who's doing such a great job in Pinecrest. Let me be very brief because we've done a number of bills. The first set of bills we did were focused on the science and public health, in which we made major investments in the National Institutes of Health, in the search for vaccines and treatments, in the Centers for Disease Control, which has been underfunded for years, and in the Food and Drug Administration to make sure that whatever treatments and vaccines were being tested, we held them to the highest standards, and we had a fast-tracked system both to protect the public health, but not to let bureaucracy get in the way of approvals for clinical trials and other things that we needed the Food and Drug Administration to do. After that, we really focused on businesses and on people starting with a huge investment in unemployment insurance across the country. The federal government added $600 a week to everybody's unemployment insurance only for 2 months, though we're talking about extending that. And we added some people to unemployment, people that were furloughed, people in the gig economy, independent contractors, so that we could cover as large a group of people as possible. And then all of you know about the Small Business Administration, not so small in its initial foray out through the big banks. Unfortunately, we put economic incentives into that bill that really incentivized our banks to go with their big clients, their bigger clients, as opposed to their smaller clients. They simply made more money with their bigger clients who they had a long relationship with and knew a lot about, as opposed to the smaller restaurants and other small businesses. But we corrected that in another CARES bill and then added protections for nursing homes and deep investments in testing in our hospitals, who we, across the country, we asked them not to do their usual services, whatever they could put off, to take care of COVID-19 patients. We made the testing free across the country. We invested in our community health centers for those that didn't have health insurance. That's briefly. The new bill focuses both on the healthcare side but in particular on states and local governments. We believe that states and local and cities like Pinecrest and Coral Gables and Miami Beach, if you think just about Miami Beach, they have 80,000, 90,000 residents and but 10 million visitors a year. And those businesses are totally tied to crowds, as are our hotels, our ports, obviously the cruise industry, the airports, so that recovery in our community is going to be particularly difficult. And we wanted to make investments in the state and local governments and get money directly to the cities in our community, as well as give the state some money as well. But we wanted to target it because the cost of COVID-19 was not only the health cost, but of course it led to dramatic economic costs. We're working on that bill now, and that bill may extend the small business loan grants, but allow small businesses to keep them as they open up. One of the things I've learned from talking to so many small businesses in our community is they can't start with 100% of their employees. They want to keep their employees tied to them, but they may only be able to start with 25% or 10% or at best 50%. And we need to make sure our money is flexible so that we help finance the transition, particularly through the summer, though unemployment, we've asked that go until the end of the year. These are crude instruments to solve very human problems that small businesses are having. I know that. I think my colleagues on the other side of the aisle know that. We've been trying to do bipartisan bills, and until last week, we've been doing bipartisan bills, but I think we're going to start negotiations pretty swiftly, particularly on the state and local pieces, and on the corrections. Hopefully next week, we'll agree to some corrections on the small business loans and on UI. The problem is when you put out bills this fast, you make some mistakes and you need to do the corrections right away. So I actually am going to go. We now have a proxy system in which we can hand our vote over to someone, but I'm going to go to Washington. I'm actually going to leave on Monday because on Tuesday I sit on the Rules Committee that sets the rule so we can pass legislation. And so I'm going to go early and spend most of the week there. My office is available. All of this information is on my website. It's shalala.house.gov. shalala.house.gov. You can call our local office as well, or the Washington office. We're answering every phone call. We're answering every piece of mail. We're answering every email right away. We've got a rotation system. My staff is all working remotely. We actually purchased laptops for everyone So the entire staff of 16 people, they're all bilingual or trilingual. So we're getting hundreds of calls, and I wouldn't even describe them as calls, they're cries for help. And I'm trying to, at the same time, understand how our bills have worked and how they haven't worked for our community. But I'm well aware that our community has been devastated because we're so tied to the hospitality industry and to visitors. And we can talk a little about opening up and what we need to do, but let me just end there and point out that my colleagues that you're going to hear from are really colleagues. We've all been working together and giving each other input, and we meet on a regular basis. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. A couple of things. Yes, the collaboration and the camaraderie that we've seen across the board is huge and incredible, and the accessibility that we have to our local elected officials is extremely, extremely important, and we're so appreciative of that. So thank you again for being here. And again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll address them at the end of the program. So next up, we have Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez. Senator Rodriguez is a member of the Florida Senate. He's representing the 37th District and includes portions of Coral Gables, Pinecrest, Key Biscayne, and downtown Miami. And he will be updating us on unemployment updates in the state, as well as other COVID concerns. So, Senator?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm looking for you. We can hear you.
Better. All right. I'll turn on the microphone.
Perfect.
Okay, good. Well, I thank everybody for joining. I want to thank, obviously, our host, Mayor Corradino, and all the members of Chamber South. I just put in the chat my contact information. Please do not be shy about reaching out if there's anything that I or my team can do to help. That's our job. Yeah, the district that I serve goes from downtown and Allapattah in the city of Miami all the way south through Cutler Bay, west to east, the city of West Miami to Key Biscayne. So everything in between, including, as you mentioned, Coral Gables, South Miami, and all down south, and of course, Village of Pinecrest. I would be remiss if I did not mention that. It's an honor to, as Congresswoman mentioned, to be able to work with Representative Shalala, McGhee, Fernandez in their capacities. I thank them for their leadership. I'll mention a couple topics briefly. Layoff aversion is one of the things that we have been trying to get the word out about. When I say layoff aversion, there are a limited number of programs that are designed to help employers prevent layoffs, or in some cases, bring people back on a part-time basis after layoffs. What I'm referring to is the short-time compensation program, which is administered by the Department of Economic Opportunity. The work that Congresswoman Shalala and her colleagues did with the CARES Act did a substantial amount to improve the program for us. But that's a program that works through our unemployment system. Employers structure a work share program where they reduce a certain percentage of employees' hours as a way to reduce layoffs across the whole employment unit. And those employees who are having their hours reduced get a type of unemployment assistance. It's a bridge for that employer to get through that period of time. And it's something that's specially tailored for that workplace. It's something that employers, it's a program they put together, and they put together a plan, not a program. They pitch it to the state approves it within 2 weeks. And we've heard very little problems with the program. It's existed since the 1980s. And so please reach out if you want more information on that. It's on thefloridajobs.org. I want to do everything I can, and I've been working with you all and other local chambers to try to get the word out, because it's a very successful program. You know, historically, nationally, other states have them, and not enough people know about them, frankly. So we're trying to get information about them. Short time compensation program is what it's called, STC. The Congresswoman has fought for us, as you know, on the
the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, the first and then most importantly the second round to help small businesses. With food security, there's a lot that we've been working on. I know that my colleagues will speak to that, especially Leader McGhee. A lot of your members have been volunteers supporting different efforts on food security with efforts to help seniors, etc. So I want to thank you for that. But I will mention tomorrow in the morning we'll be at Varick Park with Rep Duran, myself, Commissioner Suarez, and Commissioner Russell. And on Saturday we will also be in Palmetto Bay at Christ Fellowship at a food distribution event hosted by myself and Rep. Alupis. On unemployment, I know this is supposed to be a 5-minute update. Many questions you may have are for those needing unemployment or for those employers trying to help their employees that are, unfortunately had to experience a layoff. As many people know, we've got serious issues with the unemployment system here in Florida. It was already the worst or one of the worst in the country in terms of how it was designed and operated. And other states have had problems, but none quite so catastrophic as ours. We're slowly getting there as a state in terms of, having an application process, customer service, making sure people get paid the right amounts on time. There may be a lot of questions, but as of right now, a little over 1.5 million Floridians have applied for unemployment assistance since March 15th. Of those, almost 1 million, have been paid something, have been paid some part of some week, at least gotten something from the state. So it's almost, according to the state, 100% of those who they deem eligible. Now that leaves about 500,000 ineligible. A large part of that are folks that applied and were denied, but are eligible, hopefully through the quote-unquote PUA program. That's the program that includes coverage for gig workers and independent contractors. So a large part of the people who are still left in that ineligible bucket, we hope, the data seems to show that, so does what DEO tells us, that a large portion of those people are actually going to end up being eligible for the PUA program. The last thing I'll mention, I know a lot of the priorities that we share, we worked hard for during the legislative session: affordable housing, teacher pay, the climate legislation that I worked on. Rep. Alupis was my House sponsor. We got that passed. We are not expecting a special session prior to November. That could easily change based on the numbers that we're going to get this month, but the received wisdom is that we're not expecting a special session, and that's good. Only in the sense that it increases the likelihood we're going to be able to protect those gains for affordable housing and for teachers. But it is a concern because there are a lot of things that many states are addressing in this pandemic and economic crisis that we should be, but unfortunately we likely will not get that chance because there's not going to be a special session till the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Senator, for that update. We really appreciate that. Moving on, we have Representative Javier Fernandez, and Representative Fernandez is no stranger to Chamber South. This is his third town hall with us since this pandemic started, so thank you, Representative, for your support. He is a member of the Florida House of Representatives representing the 114th District, which includes portions of Coral Gables, South Miami, Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, and Cutler Bay. And he will be updating us on COVID updates pertaining to his district and other community efforts. And I see that he also put his contact information in the chat. So Representative, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brittany, again for the invitation, and thanks for ChamberSOUTH for putting together this wonderful event. And to our host, Mayor Cordino, thank you for sponsoring this conversation. Good to see you as well. Congressman Shalala, I have to say thank you for, right from the inception, getting all of us together at the state, local, and federal level in communication, talking about how we can coordinate and make sure we're all serving our constituents in the best way possible. Thank you for your leadership in doing that as well, ma'am. The latest updates in terms of numbers just kind of show a continuing trend without much change. 48 new deaths as of today in Florida. Deaths reported in other counties: Charlotte, Collier, Duval, Escambia, Manatee, Okaloosa, Putnam, Polk, and Sarasota counties, Volusia and Fulton counties also having reported deaths. Our testing rates, in terms of positivity, are at 2.4%, which has been pretty flat. But the number of new cases continues to rise with 1,200 new positives today. I don't have a ton more to update the group with. We continue to have significant unemployment issues. The governor has really, I think, overstated the recent efficacy of their repayment efforts, indicating in conversation that they have a 96% payment rate. All we are seeing in terms of calls we're getting towards offices reflects people getting partial payments that are being included as part of that statistic. So lots of people having issues in terms of getting their full payments. Feeding South Florida, and we're having one direct drop event here in South Miami to some senior buildings on May 28th, and on May 29th and June 11th we'll be at Community Center at 8905. We'll be drive events in the morning hours. Anyone is welcome there, and we'll have information on our social media for anyone who has someone in need to attend. If your constituents are any questions, please reach out to our office. To take those calls and provide any assistance where we can on issues related to unemployment or any other concerns that may arise. Thanks again, Brittany.
Thank you, Representative Fernandez. We really appreciate that update. And I know that a lot of information is going out from all of our different panelists. So our office is going to work really closely with their offices to make sure that we compile all this information and send it out to our members. So don't focus too much on getting dates and information, because we'll be able to reach out, get that directly from our panelists and provide that to you directly. So last but certainly not least, we have Leader McGee. Representative McGee is a member of the Florida House of Representatives, and he represents the 117th district and includes Central Miami-Dade County, stretching from Richmond Heights to Florida City. And he will be updating us on COVID efforts within his district, such as farm share distributions and other community efforts. So Leader McGee, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you very much, Brittany, and thank you to Chamber South for this opportunity to converse with you. And also wanted to take a shout out at the Congresswoman, who's doing an excellent job, who's on top of everything. She's everywhere. We know when she's up there in D.C. Fighting a good fight, we do know we can sleep at night knowing that we have a fighter up there for us. Secondly, as it relates to my colleagues who are in the Florida legislature right now, who are on this phone call, listen, the reality of it is I wouldn't select a better group of people to fight for the great people of the state of Florida with than the individuals who are on this phone right now. But as it relates to the information related to COVID, you heard a great rundown of what's happening. The biggest issue we're seeing right now, even in our district, is statewide, is the unemployment system. Currently, as of today, we're still assisting individuals in the community with processing different types of requests to DEO. What we're hearing and what we're seeing are totally different. I know many people out there are saying that the system is coming online, it's doing better than it was doing before. Look, I can't argue with you on that. But what I am seeing is that there are some unintended consequences due to the reality of not having the system in place when it should have been in place to help our constituents. As it relates to the feeding programs that we're seeing here in the community, we have done a great job with partnering up with Farm Share, Feeding South Florida, and other organizations who are putting forth great efforts, ensuring that people in the community are able to have some form and some sort of food or resources to go back home with and to. I can actually tell you, had it not been for those programs, many people in our communities across this great state would be literally suffering worse than what they are right now. But again, COVID, and there's no room for me to throw blame at anyone because it can be placed there, but don't want to make this a political issue. So what I've been preaching and telling everybody what we ought to do is put aside the political bickering, put aside the partisan politics, and simply focus on helping individuals move forward. Now, what does that look like, helping them move forward? It simply means that many of us who are the leaders throughout this country, who are the elected leaders, whether it's your district, whether it's your congressional area, whether it's the country. You have to put your head down and continuously work. Right now, I found that simply working hard, working through issues, helping these community members deal with unemployment, farm shares, deal with small businesses. That's another area that we're noticing now that is actually suffering even more. We knew it was going to be a hit to small businesses because they had to shut down and had to reduce their capacity, or had to reduce their employees. But the reality of it is we have to come up with a game plan that's really going to be truly beneficial to them. One of the things I did like, and I heard today, was from the Congresswoman, who informed us, in fact, that there are going to be some programs / resources that are going to come down the chute that's really going to be beneficial for our small businesses. And the last thing, I'll say this. Listen, there are 21 million of us here in the great state of Florida. And we all understand that at some given time, those who are not in position to make things happen as they should have happened will have to answer to the people then. But right now, I just simply hope that everybody can just join forces together. Let's do this on behalf of the people, and we'll wait for whatever issues down the road that we have to address as it relates to the blame game. Because there's enough blame to go around, but right now, as long as we spending more of our time blaming one another for what didn't happen or what happened, we tend to leave out the people who are our bosses, and those are our constituents. And also, Brittany, I've actually placed into the box, I placed in the box my actual contact information if someone needs to contact me. And also, there will be a farm share in Richmond Heights on the 28th, sponsored by Farm Share from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Myself, along with community leaders from Richmond Heights and Representative Fernandez, will be part of that farm share to ensure that the people of that area receive the nutrients that they need in this time of crisis. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Leader McGee. We appreciate it. And again, yes, we're going to compile all of the contact information, all the updates that we received. We'll reach out to your offices directly, get all that information, send out a follow-up email to all the attendees and everyone that's on our mailing list so that the information is shared and in the hands of the people that need it. So I just want to remind everyone, one of the big perks of having this and being part of this town hall is the ability to ask questions directly to your local leaders. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We have a couple that I will go through and they'll be asked in order that they were received. So the first question is, Senate Majority Leader McConnell has said that the newest CARES Act bill is dead in the water and that he sees no need for further stimulus funding. What is the next step to ensure that local and state governments don't go bankrupt and furlough essential employees and services like police, fire, waste, etc.? Congresswoman, I think.
Well, there's bipartisan, am I unmuted?
Yeah.
There's bipartisan support in the Senate to move on the needs of state and local governments. So, politicians have these things like dead on arrival, but the truth is that we will begin negotiations, and next week when we go back, there's already been negotiation over corrections in existing bills, and the president hasn't quite made up his mind, but there are polls out now that show that 2/3 of the American people believe that we need to help states and our cities. And I just think things are going to move. I've gotten used to people saying, dead on arrival, we're not going to do anything. Meanwhile, they're going to start negotiations at least by the beginning of June.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Congresswoman. Our second question, and I'll pose a question to the panel. I know that Representative Fernandez answered it a little bit in the chat, but a question was posed: what effect is it having on our government officials that there are so many families and children that are without daily nutrition? How are we going to address this issue now? It's not only about COVID-19, it's about life for many in Miami. I know Representative Fernandez got ahead of it and said that, and this is extremely true, all of our representatives are working really diligently with their partners at Farm Share, Feeding South Florida, SOS Foundation. Others are doing the best we can to get food in the hands of families that need it. And if you know of any families that are in need, by all means, please contact your local representatives and they'll be sure to connect them with the appropriate assistance. But Leader McGee, Senator Rodriguez, Congresswoman, if you have any additional information that you want to share, please.
Yes, we've literally allocated billions to Meals on Wheels for seniors, and any senior, anyone over 60, that needs meals to be delivered. All they have to do is call 311 in our county, and they will sign them up for meal delivery. In addition, as everybody knows, the schools are doing a terrific job getting food out to kids, the lunches and the breakfasts that they're missing because they're not in school. We've given considerable money to food banks around the country, and we've expanded the SNAP benefits, the supplementary, the old food stamp. Those applications are actually being given out at the libraries. When they're giving out unemployment applications, they're also giving out SNAP benefit applications. And the program for pregnant women and children, the WIC program, has also been expanded. So wherever we could make investments in nutrition in existing programs, we put literally billions of dollars into those programs. And of course, Farm Share, and frankly, our farmers in South Florida have done a terrific job supporting our community. But there are federal programs that are available, particularly for those most vulnerable in our community, and we're all participating in food banks as well.
And Brittany, quickly, I echo everything that you've heard thus far from Representative Fernandez and our Congresswoman on this one. You know, money is being poured into existing programs. We found that these programs have safeguards in place to get the resources out. But I agree also with one of the questions that came up earlier, was that we also must make sure we protect those fathers and include them into this program, as there are also single parents too who are actually looking to get assistance.
And I would just add to the comments and the good word that, and the good work, excuse me, that my colleagues are doing, is that we already had a food security crisis for a lot of Floridians before COVID-19. So we have existing programs supported by the federal government. Congresswoman Shalala mentioned SNAP, other things like that. Department of Children and Families reports that things are going well in terms of being able to administer that for the increased need. You know, the programs for seniors, the Department of Elder Affairs here in the state of Florida administers the Meals on Wheels programs in conjunction with local government, again with federal money. Thank you, Congresswoman Shalala. But you know, one of the things to mention is that these programs already exist, and from everything we've been hearing, the providers on the ground that operate these programs, they're really stressed, they're overworked, but they're able to meet the need so far through existing programs. And again, these programs existed because we already had food security issues. And so if there are folks that are reporting that those programs aren't working, that there are people that are calling 311 and not getting a meal, please reach out to us and let us know, because that would be good information, obviously, for us to follow up on. But I think the only other thing I would say is, as we're out there in the community, I'd encourage people, it's a lot of individuals, you know, this economic crisis associated with COVID-19 is fast and furious and unlike anything we've seen in terms of how quickly job losses have occurred. So those who are experiencing financial issues, you know, help us to undo maybe some stigma that might be keeping people from applying for SNAP, from asking for help for them and their families, for a bridge through this crisis, right? So, you know, that's one of the things that, talking with DCF, stigma is still a big thing, keeping people from reaching out. So, you know, definitely want to put a plug out there as we're having conversations out there.
Yeah, and let me add to that, because the senators and representatives have heard me say this over and over again. It's your money. People have been paying taxes for many years and sending the money up to Washington. All I'm doing is bringing those resources back to you. So we have to do everything we can to overcome the stigma, because frankly, we need Floridians to recognize that it's their money that they're now using. It's money that they've sent up to Washington that we're bringing back.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And then lastly, I just want to direct everyone's attention to the chat. Again, Representative Fernandez has put some information in there about Miami-Dade County Public Schools. They have been providing grab-and-go meals for students at various student meal distribution sites all over the county, and they're being distributed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 4 to 7 p.m. You can visit Miami-Dade County Public Schools websites for a complete list of sites. And there's also free meals for seniors and children through Miami-Dade County. So if you need a free meal for a senior, call 311, and for children 18 and younger, for a free meal, you can call 211. So all that information is listed there in our chat. There's another question. Is there a discussion about health prevention programs for young men? Since so many men are being affected by COVID-19, we need to concentrate on prevention, was the last statement in that question.
Well, we've put substantial money, depending on whether they have health insurance or not. So many young men in our community don't have health insurance, and as a result, we've put substantial money into our community health centers, the federally qualified community health centers. There are 21 of them in our district. They're listed on my website, again, shalala.house.gov. And anyone can walk into those community health centers and get the health care that they need. And for COVID-19, the tests are free, and we've given substantial money to the hospitals to help cover the costs. We're trying in the new bill to make sure that we're covering all the costs of those that are affected, that actually get the disease, the virus itself. And hopefully the bills, anyone that has insurance, they're being covered, but we're trying to make sure that we cover those that don't have insurance. And we started with making the tests free and putting money into the community health centers.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Congresswoman. Another question that we received here in our office is, do you foresee any extension for utilizing PPP funding that was received beyond the 8 weeks as originally allotted as small businesses and employers ramp up through the different phases of opening?
The answer is yes. And we're negotiating that now. I think we now all realize that, as I indicated, there has to be a transition. So I do think that we're going to extend it and offer a transition, extend it beyond the 2 months and offer a transition. And that's what we're going back to Washington, hopefully. They've gotten close to negotiating that when we return.
Okay, another question that we just received in the chat. As our communities continue to open, what are the most important next steps to avoid major increases in cases of COVID-19? That's for any of our panelists.
I guess I can answer that. Testing. We need to make sure that any employee that's working in a business that's opening up is being tested. That's going to be critical. And then all the safety measures that are listed by the CDC and frankly by the detailed report that the county has put out. We're going to have to clean bathrooms, clean tables as much as we can in restaurants to serve outside. But it's the fundamental public health sanitation issues that we have to pay attention to, and everybody's got to wear a mask. There ought to be no excuses. They've got to wear a mask, they've got to wash their hands, we've got to have social distancing, and we've got to have testing. And then, of course, the follow-up on testing once we've squeezed this virus down. I'm very worried about the way in which we're opening up because we still don't have enough testing or PPE in our community, particularly for the business community. Now, I don't think we're testing everybody that's in a grocery store or a drugstore or any of the places that have already been open. And I'm just very concerned about our inability to focus on what we need to do in terms of testing as we open up. But all the other things have to take place, including social distancing and washing our hands and wearing masks, which will be absolutely critical.
I just wanted to add to what the Congresswoman said. She said, the Congresswoman said testing. I just want to add testing to testing. That's what we've been saying from the beginning. And that's based on public health experts. Obviously, I am not one. I would consider the Congresswoman one. But frankly, our businesses, especially small businesses, need it and need some guidance from the state. They're looking to local guidance, but some things, for example, the Department of Health could tell us, what types of safety equipment can you reuse? What does sanitation look like? We're getting a lot of that guidance, but frankly, probably not enough guidance from the Department of Health specifically. And as we're opening up, trying to make sure, employees, customers, everybody's protected. And in addition to being protected, that they're reassured, and we have that confidence, as consumers and members of the community. I think all those things are really important. So in addition to testing, I think a lot more guidance as to what you can and can't do that I think a lot of businesses are asking us. And of course, I can't answer those. I would look to the Department of Health and public health officials for that information.
And Brittany, one of the things I think is very important to ensuring that we don't increase the numbers here in Miami-Dade County, especially, is that we, follow what the mayor has put out, is that he's going to increase the number of tracers, contact tracers out there, so we can get ahead of this virus, to ensure that we can somehow control the numbers. So I believe he said that the county, Miami-Dade County, will hire or bring about 200 new tracers in, or between 200 and 1,000 to help out with the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, and that's important, but you've got to starve the virus down to a low number before you do contact tracing. Our numbers are still too large to put that in place. So my concern is that we still have to drive this and starve this virus down to a very small number, so we literally can do contact tracing. We've had a lot of experience with contact tracing in public health, and we ought to be able to do it. And my hope is that we're going to hire people from the community for that contact tracing.
And Congresswoman, I'm there with you.
Okay, and so one of our last questions that we're going to take today, which is a really good segue into kind of wrapping up our program, is how is this information, all this information, being shared with our communities, and what are the different ways that we're messaging this? And I can really take over that one. I mean, all of our state representatives and elected officials and leaders are extremely accessible, and they all have websites. Their contact information, their direct contact information is listed in the chat. And I'm not even kidding on this. In one of our town halls, Javier Fernandez listed a phone number, and I'm like, oh, that's his office line. And he interrupted me and he said, no, that's my cell phone number. Call me, we're here for you. So absolutely, they're very accessible. Everyone's on social media. We've become a very virtual world at this point. So not only ChamberSOUTH, which we strive to be a conduit for information for all of the communities that we represent, which you guys will all know, South Miami, Pinecrest, Monterey, Cutler Bay, and Kendall is our service area. We try to pull as much information from our different communities and from our elected officials that represent those areas and distribute that to our members. But please follow on social media, follow on Twitter, sign up for their mailing list, get the information. A lot's been going out there, and get it directly from the sources from our local elected officials. So again, I don't think there's any other questions. Once again, a huge, huge, huge thank you to all of our elected officials. You guys have been tirelessly working for our best interests and helping our community through this pandemic, and we are so grateful. And this is the end of our program, but be sure to follow ChamberSOUTH on all of our social media, subscribe to our emails, and check our websites for important information and resources and upcoming virtual events. So thank you all for joining us. Have a great day. We're ahead of schedule, so thank you.
Thank you. Too.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Take care.
Hi, Brett.
Bye.